speed limit to be posted. But of course, within the guidelines, there is always an opportunity, and as it should be, to receive a community feedback on those recommendations before the council adopts them. And we're looking forward, to listen to the submitters, in that respect, so we can finalize our recommendation to the council, and following from that, we'll submit to NZTA for final approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions from councillors before we listen to our submitters this morning? No, thank you very much. So we do have a number of submitters. We have had, I think if you've got your form in front of you, we've had one cancellation this morning. That's the one at 9:50. Dominique Leper, is it? Leper, unable to attend this morning. But so far, everyone else will appear. So we'll move into hearing submitters speak to their submissions. The first one is Jamie Bridson. Jamie, is Jamie here? Thank you. Good morning, Jamie. Thank you. And Jen's coming up.
Photos.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you for coming along this morning. You have 10 minutes. Well, you've got 20 minutes combined. Happy to take a little bit longer if you need that. What we do like is, if you wouldn't mind, perhaps there might be a question or two at the end of your submission. It's always very helpful for points of clarification from councillors. So, but other than that, the time is yours. So welcome this morning. Good morning.
Kia ora. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning at this meeting. My wife and I are writing in support and speaking in support of the proposed speed limit change of Vaughan Road, Duggan Drive to Puketewhero Park section. We are regular users of Vaughan's Road by car, bicycle and as pedestrians. I'd like to run you through some of the following observations of this stretch of road. Many primary and secondary school age students independently use this route to get to their education facilities. Many of these residents have to cross Vaughan Road to do so. Preschool age children cross the road with their families to gain access to education facilities in the area. Many users of the bus service have to cross the road to gain access to the bus stops and cross back again to return to their homes. Many people wishing to patron the shopping centre and local community centre at the eastern end of Vaughan Road, including Plunket services, must cross the road to gain access. Most weekends there are sporting events held at Puketewhero Park, and often during the week there are people using the park to meet for sports practices. On these occasions, parked cars line both sides of the street, and many athletes and their families are crossing the road to gain access to the park. Many people also have to spend time close to or on the main part of the road as they enter and leave their vehicles. There is no cycle lane, so all cyclists must share with the vehicle traffic travelling at 70 kilometres per hour. The best there is for these road users is the shoulder of the road, which is inconsistent in width, non-existent in places, and poorly surfaced in many parts. This is particularly a shame for school children, as both Makoia Intermediate and Orfota Primary are part of the Bikes in School program, which aims at encouraging more children and families to ride, giving health benefits and easing congestion at the school gates. All of this activity takes place alongside a constant flow of traffic at 70 kilometres per hour, and at times faster. This includes fully loaded truck and trailer units, other heavy commercial vehicles, in addition to lighter motor vehicles. Often vehicles are still travelling much faster than the required 50 kilometres per hour when the speed limit changes at either end. We have experienced firsthand for it to be a daunting task to cross the road anywhere in the 70 km per hour section of Vaughan Road, and know it to be the same for many others. We know families where children who can't cross the road have to return to their parents to get help to cross. This is especially so for our most vulnerable citizens, those on mobility scooters, the elderly, those who are physically impaired, parents with pushchairs, small children walking or travelling on scooters or bicycles. When this 70 km per hour speed limit was set, it was done so for a stretch of road that had much less residential housing and development than exists at present. There were no childcare centres, there were no churches, It was not a high-use area for pedestrians or road users other than motor vehicles. Lowering the speed limit would immediately improve safety for and begin to meet the current needs of the residents living in Vaughan's Road and its surrounds. It would also protect motorists, making it a safer passage for everyone, regardless of their mode of transport. However, I question whether the 50 km/h zone proposed, 400 metres stretch of Vaughan Road, is an adequate solution to the safety issues of the residents I have outlined above. I believe the entire stretch of Vaughan Road should be a 50 km/h limit. Residents of the recently developed and still growing Eastlake community, including school children, must cross Vaughan Road on the corner between Carroll Place and Tennyson Drive to gain access to schools and other amenities such as Puketewhero Park and Tinai Shopping Centre. In its current form, this proposal will not change the speed limit in this area and will remain a 70 km/h area. Hence, these safety issues have not been resolved. Residents of Tennyson Drive and connected streets must all cross Vaughan Road at the corner between Carroll Place and Tennyson Drive to access public transport, which will remain a 70 km/h zone in the current proposal. Often those accessing public transport are our more vulnerable citizens. The current situation is unsatisfactory. Many children and families also cross Vaughan's Road from Tennyson Drive to access the swimming hole by the bridge and the streamside walkway to the playground within Eastlake. Again, under the current proposal, this stretch of road will remain a 70 km/h section and continue to compromise the safety of children in this area. There are no pedestrian crossings or refuge islands to protect pedestrians or similar road users crossing Vaughan Road. This section of road remains inherently dangerous, especially for our most vulnerable people. In addition, NZTA are currently in the design phase of upgrading the Tinai and Tarawera intersection, along with further upgrades to the Tinai Eastern Corridor to follow. Vaughan Road is already used by many commuters as a way to avoid congestion or traffic lights on Tinai Road, especially during morning and afternoon periods when traffic is heaviest. This activity will increase during the period of roadworks that is coming soon, as more motorists will be lured to avoid the roadworks and associated delays and choose the faster 70 km/h section of road. This will be most detrimental to the people who live in the area and increase the already significant risk to pedestrians and road users choosing or required to use alternative modes of transport, such as cyclists, along Vaughan Road. I ask the Council to seriously consider extending the current proposal to include the remaining section of Vaughan Road from Puketewhero Park all the way to Ngāpuna. This distance is approximately 900 metres. Driving this 900-metre stretch of Vaughan Road at 70 km/h, compared with 50, as we propose, would save a motorist less than 20 seconds. All of us have the right to a safe and enjoyable experience using our local roads, no matter how we use them. The 20-second time or productivity saving is of no practical significance to the individual road user and does not justify the cost in terms of safety or detriment to community. We know from research that the outcomes for pedestrian motor vehicle collisions are drastically improved at 50 km/h compared with 70. I refer you to the reference in my submission. At 50 km/h, a pedestrian has a 40% chance of survival in such an accident. At 70 km/h, the chance of survival is nil. We must base decision-making on sound evidence with the interest of community, and especially those most vulnerable, at heart. Under Section 2.7, specifically 2.72 of the NZTA Land Transport Rule Setting of Speed Limits 2017, Council can still make changes to the proposal to include all of Vaughan's Road. We also see concerns raised in correspondence by Glenn Bunting from NZTA regarding the proposed speed limit change point at Puketewhero Park. This is inconsistent with section 3.33 of the rule, which states that speed limit changes must be at or close to a point of obvious change in the roadside development of the road. Extending the 50-kilometre speed limit to the whole length of Vaughan Road would address Glenn's issue. In addition, Glenn suggests that the NZTA Safer Journeys Risk Assessment tool shows the safe and appropriate speed for this road to be 40 kilometres per hour. That would be awesome. I am asking the Council and the councillors to consider setting the speed limit for all of Vaughan's Road at 50 kilometres per hour. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. There'll be some questions. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Bentley.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I've just got a question for Peter Dine, actually. What are the ramifications for council if we do 50k the whole of Vaughan's Road?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Bentley. Yes, it is council's decision to set the speed limit. It is subject to review by NZTA. Whether they would say anything about changing the whole lot of it to 50, I'm not sure, but we would certainly discuss it with them before making a recommendation along those lines.
Thank you. Councillor Gould.
Madam Chair, another question to Peter Dine. Peter, with the recommendation from this committee to reduce the speed limit to 50k if we agree to it on all of Vaughan's Road, would that be better going back to NZTA for a recommendation with them to reduce it?
Thank you, Councillor Gould. Look, we would discuss it with them. We don't need their approval. All I'm saying is that they do have the right to rescind a council decision. But before making any recommendation, as I say, we would certainly discuss it with them and get their view.
Thank you. Councillor Tapsell.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome back, Jamie. It's good to see you again, and a warm welcome to your wife, Jen. Thank you for your very well-written and well-articulated submission. I think you've covered all those areas pretty well. I did just have one further question on a small point you had about there being no pedestrian crossings or refuge islands. As you're aware, we probably have other methods of making roads safer. So in the small possibility that we cannot change it to a lower speed, are you suggesting in your submission that we do implement other safer things like having the pedestrian crossings, refuge islands, or like in other places we've put speed bumps, or is it just the speed that you are focusing on?
Thank you for your question. The main concern we see is with the speed, but if pedestrian crossings and islands were put in as well as reducing the speed, that would be excellent.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you. Actually, it's a thank you for raising a point, but I'm going to ask one of the staff to answer it. Stavros, James raised...
Can I just ask, can you just be aware that some of the technical questions really come up later for the deliberation, when we have our deliberations. So yes, just be aware of that, councillors.
I will.
Thank you.
I think this relates directly to the fact that when work begins on Tenai Road, this will be used as a bypass.
Exactly.
And I wonder, Jamie's raised the issue here, there will be far greater volume of traffic going down that road. What specific measures are we putting in place? Because it's not something we should be reactive about, it's something that we know is going to happen in the way of pedestrian crossings, in the way of cycle paths, in the way of access places, so that we don't end up with pinch points, and also so that this isn't seen as a particularly attractive, fast route to get past the roadworks. So that's my question, in order to for our submitters to understand what their point has raised. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. There's a number of responses to that question, and I won't go into too much detail, but for for the benefit of time. But you're quite correct, when the works on Tarawera intersection commence, a temporary traffic management plan will be required from NZTA and their contractors, and obviously we'll consider that as part and parcel of that. The second element is that, as you're aware, we are at the moment exploring a detailed business case of 4-laning Isles Road to the airport with NZTA, and a consequence of that, of course, is a question as to what will happen to Vaughan Road as a suburban arterial route, and that will also have a significant impact as to how the final design and configuration of Vaughan Road will be finalised. The third consideration is that we have ongoing land development proposals in that area, and for every land development there are always going to be traffic impact assessments, and that will determine position of pedestrian crossing, safety areas, and so on. And the fourth element, next with the LTP, if NZTA agrees to the extension of our cycleway network, we anticipate that Vaughan Road and the lakefront would be part of that network, and obviously will determine the final configuration of that corridor. So it's a number of areas to be considered. I think the submitters make some extremely good points. All I can say at the moment, those points will be gradually implemented as part and parcel of one of those 4 considerations, and we will take them all on board. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell. Thank you. Councillor Kumar.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and my apologies for being late this morning. My question is, thank you, Jamie, for your submission. Second time I'm seeing you on your submission. And my question is, how will mitigating 50 kilometers an hour, it is a very heavy residential area with East Lake and Moana views, as well as the use of the parks. Based from my experience in Springfield with that roundabout that took 4 months, everyone started using Nikau Street and Jackson Street as a bypass. There were no speed limits set, but people automatically choose the quickest route to go. So how is it going to mitigate just putting 50 kilometers an hour on that stretch, stop people from accessing the heavy traffic? Are you suggesting that something should be done on each junctions before they enter and exit? Or are you thinking that 50 kilometers an hour is going to slow the traffic down to the point of safety, but will still allow all that excess traffic? Soon as I believe the roadworks start on Tinai Road, people see boulders, tractors, earth-moving stuff, they take the next exit. And from my little and small experience at Springfield and the frustration that I see every day for the last 4 months, this is on a bigger scale, it's on a national scale. And I think, from my point of view, 50 kilometers will probably make the neighborhood safer in terms of usage, but I don't think it'll stop the traffic flow.
Are you saying, Councillor Kumar, it won't reduce the numbers and possibly actually increase?
It won't. In fact, it will add to his biggest fear, which is the excess traffic. They will all come through the roundabout on Tinai Road, heading south into the city, or if they're heading north out, they will. If you go to Vaughan's Road at about 4:30 when Infocor finish and see how much of a blockade there is, and the congestion there is there every day, you can't even do a turn on Vaughan's Road on that north end going in. So I believe, it is my belief that 50 kilometers an hour is probably a safe option for the neighborhood in terms of the safety factor, but I don't believe that's going to do anything for the flow of the traffic.
Yes, might like to respond. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, I guess I agree with what you're saying, and I believe changing it, the whole length of Vaughan Road to 50 kilometres an hour would be a very good first step in terms of controlling traffic and how that will be done during the NZTA roadworks. I guess that would be to the experts here at Council and NZTA to decide how that is best managed. But yes, I would feel more comfortable if there was some management of the flows through Vaughan's Road on top of the reducing of speed limit.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll take 2 more questions and then we're going to thank you very much. That was, by the way, Jen, that was your part of your, you shared the same spot, is that correct? Oh, you've got additional?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
all
Jen
right
has
then. My
some
goodness, then we have used up a bit of
slides
time.
to-
So thank you. It will be just 2 quick questions from Mr. Thomas and then Ms. Mohi. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, just something that's come out of your submission, and thank you very much for it. It was very coherent. It did make me want to ask if there was a particular reason why only a section of Vaughan's Road had been seen by council to be reduced to the 50k area.
Yeah,
Was there a specific reason for that? And I don't know if that's to ask now or in the deliberations.
That should be asked when we come to the deliberations. What the submitters, what Mr. Bridson has highlighted is the effect that would have, or the desired effect, a reduction, and then not just in that one specific part at all. So good question, but that would be for the deliberation time.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Mohi?
Kia ora tātou. My apologies first for being late this morning. Just in response to Councillor Kuma for you, Madam Chair, I think we're talking about 2 separate issues here. The change of speed limit is a long-term permanent setting in terms of supporting safety for that community, so I support that submission. And the upgrade is a temporary process that will lead to relieving some of the congestion that will occur. Not just that's occurring now, but that probably will get worse in the interim. But as you know, that's the nature of change. There will be some uncomfortable moments, so to speak, but in the long term, I think it will relieve the pressure and support the community.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we'll now take your submission then, Mrs. Bridson.
Morena. Ko te aroha te maunga, ko Wairoa te awa, ko Oputaki te marae, ko Ngāpuhi te iwi, ko Jen Bridson ahau.
Nā koe.
This morning I'm here to take you for a walk down Vaughan Road because I think you don't get a sense of what it's like from a map. I want to introduce you to some of the people who live along here and use the road regularly and give information that supports lowering of the speed limit to 50 kilometres per hour to the end of Puketewhiro Park. I want to suggest that the proposed amendment should be changed to include the whole of Vaughan Road to be lowered to 50 kilometres per hour, and I'm going to provide some information that supports this too. See how we go. Alright, so this is starting at the eastern end of Vaughan's Road, walking towards the west. The first thing we have here is the community centre, which runs a whole lot of different services for the community. The Plunkett rooms are located here. This photograph is taken on a Friday morning where there is a trip for senior citizens every Friday. It's a variable group of people. This is a group of about 50 getting on a bus to go somewhere. Most of these people have to walk to come and join in on these trips, and to do that a lot of them have to cross Vaughan Road. This is Duggan Drive coming onto Vaughan Road on the northern side. You can see it's a high pedestrian area. It's right where the 50 kilometre zone at the moment ends and becomes 70. And there's a hazard here because the traffic is speeding up and slowing down, so the speeds are variable for pedestrians. They don't know what they're going to find. This is an example of residential housing coming onto Vaughan Road on the northern side. The entire stretch of Vaughan Road down to Carroll Place in that last East Lake development has residential housing coming onto the road in varying densities. This is Puketewhiro Park on a Sunday and at the end of an event that was not a big one, so this is not a good example of how busy the traffic gets. This is actually a really low amount of traffic on a Sunday. And a big event, which is quite often the cars flank the entire street and the people are coming in and out of their cars and crossing the road, and this is all taking place with 70 km/h traffic. This is the site of the new development that's going in. It's an example of the area developing. This will not be the last one. While this is being built, there will be more and more traffic as infrastructure is built for this development, and there will be more residential traffic. This is a picture, a terrible one, of the church, but I wanted to get the truck in it. that is on the northern side of Vaughan Road. It's a really busy church. There are meetings there every week, and there are 2 large meetings where the car park is full to overflowing every week. Those are my 2 children in the front. This is a picture of the bus stop across the road from Puketewhiro Park. You can see on the side there. That's where people would get off to access the park if they were using the bus, and they would have to cross the road, across that traffic, which is going 70 kilometres an hour and faster. This is a picture of the new childcare centre that is on the northern side of the road, so it's just before the church. At pick-up and drop-off times, like 8:30 from 3:30 till 5 p.m. at night, the car park doesn't obviously allow for all the parents to be in there at one time, so there are cars parked up and down both sides of the street with children and parents going to and from their cars, and the cars that are travelling on the road are going 70 kilometres an hour and faster. What this is a time series. We took over 4 minutes. This is the Tennyson Drive intersection where the bus stop is. This is where we get the bus from our house. We just wanted to give you a demonstration of what the traffic is like, and I want you to remember these cars are going 70 kilometres an hour and many of them are travelling faster. This is what it's like for us. We want to use our road. This is an alleyway that comes out of Byron Grove. So Byron Grove is one of the streets that is connected onto Tennyson Drive. It comes out to give families access to the reserve that is on the side of the road there, and there's children playing there. It also gives access so they can cross the road to come to the streamside walk and the waterhole. Now this is the water, I call it a creek. Some of the kids in the area call it a waterhole. I wouldn't want to swim in it, but I'm not 10. And that area is frequented with children throughout the summer crossing the road, so they can enjoy the water. This is this walk, sorry about the terrible photo, that goes down to the park. There's a park at the end there, and there's quite often horses in the paddock that children go and feed. And so now what I'm going to do is introduce you to some of the people who use the road. So this is me on my bike. Those are my 4 children sitting in the front of the box there. And we come down this road 6 times a week to go to and from kindergarten, and we negotiate this intersection. Once a week on a Wednesday, I take the kids into town on the bus to the library, and this is where we cross the road. We also walk down the road to get to the store quite often. You can see how close the footpath comes to the side of the road. This is right at the section where the 50k zone ends at the moment. And this is just us walking down the road. And again. This is Harley. She has 5 children and she lives in the Tennyson Road area. She hasn't really thought much about the speed of the road until recently, when she realised her 2 daughters will get on the bus next year to go and access the education facility in town. And she's really scared of sending them out there to cross that road on their own. This is Serena. She walks from Bronte Place along to the childcare centre I pictured earlier every day to drop her kids off at the daycare centre. She says to me that she feels like her children only have to make one small mistake, or the traffic travelling only have to make one small mistake, and it could be a really awful situation. This is Hepe. This is him with his grandson visiting one of the horses at the horse park. He lives in that house right there, which is where the 50k zone that you've proposed will finish. He rides a bike as well most days. He uses a wheelchair to get around, and his bike is quite a cool one that's been converted so that he can get some exercise. Currently he can't travel down towards the western end of Vaughan Road because it's just too dangerous. I should have said before, one of the, down by the horse park, the last corner before you get to the industrial area is a blind corner. It's a 70k zone. It's a high crash rate if you look it up. There's been people killed down there. He can't take his bike around those corners because he's afraid he'll get wiped off. So he travels up the other end of the road, but his wife has a heart attack every time he does. They have written a letter, and I'm not going to read it all. I'll leave it here for you if you'd like it. A couple of bits I'll read out to you. We have lived at 229 Vaughan Road, that house, for 13 years. During this time we have seen huge changes in the traffic flow due to massive increased housing, as well as large increase in traffic flow caused by commuters using Vaughan Road instead of Tenai Road. There is a Māori cemetery just across the road from us that is frequently visited, and congestion there is quite common. Because we live here and see it all, we would like to respectfully suggest that you make the whole stretch a 50-kilometre area. Yours sincerely from Hepe and Julie.
You'll need to start wrapping it up. Thank you.
I will. This is Olivia and Jessica and Abby, they often cross the road to access the waterhole. These are the children that they have friends across the road, and them and their friends often have to go back and ask for an adult to support them to cross the road. This is the kind of traffic they have to negotiate at travelling at 70 kilometres an hour and faster. That's it.
Thank you. Look, thank you very much, both of you, Jen and Jamie, for coming in this morning, and particularly for showing us those pictures. You know, the impact, it's when you see the pictures, you really do get a clear sense of what you've just been talking about and presenting to us. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you very much both for presenting this morning and coming along and speaking to your submission. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you. Is Samantha here? Samantha, thank you. Page 12. Page 12 on your submission in the report. Good morning, Samantha. Morena. Welcome this morning. Thank you. You have 10 minutes if you'd like to use it all up, or if you would like to leave a little bit of time for questions. Other than that, it's over to you. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Sorry, I'm not as prepared as the previous presenter, and wish I had taken some photos now. So I'm talking about the stretch of road along Hamarana Road, between the Tauranga turn-off and State Highway on the other end. I live along Hamarana Road at Mauria, and support the whole stretch of road becoming 70 kilometres an hour. But I would also ask Council to consider lowering the speed limits in the settlements along that stretch of road, because traffic has increased. We get a lot of tourism traffic, we get a lot of trucks down there, and there's children living on both sides of the road in those settlements who like to cross to get either to the lake or their friends. There's in Hamarana itself, there's always kids at the bridge jumping off, and that's a very busy area in the summer. But also at Mauria, where we live, there's 2 marae on that stretch of road. There are kids, or tamariki, getting school buses and vans and need to cross the road. And having travelled along that road, my experience is I've seen tourists on the other side of the road, well, I'm assuming the tourists, but absolutely oblivious. And so reducing the speed limit obviously increases safety, but in the settlements themselves, I've seen cars overtaking in the settlements, and so reducing the speed limit down further where there are straight stretches of road will reduce the risk of higher speed limits or speeds of people overtaking. So I just would like to reiterate what my written submission was, that it be considered seriously about, at the same time as reducing the overall speed along that section where the settlements are, because you know, going back 10 years, my now deceased cousin was saying to me, we ought to be a 50 in Mauria. And traffic has got a lot worse in those 10 years. So I just think if they're being looked at, this is the ideal opportunity to really consider safer community speed limit for, you know, especially Tamariki. I'd like to thank the council for the footpath that we've recently had in Mauria. That has improved things, but in terms of whānau and families enjoying the community that they live in, with the amount of traffic going down there, the volume and the speeds, it makes it very difficult, especially when you're living close to other whānau. Then you don't, it should be safe for Tamariki to be able to visit their nan or auntie or uncle without you having to worry or walk them down when there is a footpath. So that speed limit is really important in the settlement areas, and that's...
Thank you. Thank you, Samantha. Ms Mohi, thank you.
Kia ora, Samantha. Thank you for submission. So I live in Auahau, and I understand the issues you're talking about. We have a close relationship with the Hamirana area, and I tautoko your kōrero around the issues with the bridge in summer particularly. There's a lot of kids bombing off that bridge, and it's an issue we have in terms of the iwi have raised as well with within council and various rōpū that we work with. So I support that submission around particularly Mauria and Hamirana.
Oh, and Auahau, I forgot about that.
Yeah, there's I guess my only more the logistical stuff is there's a 80k change just past the Auahau turnoff to the State Highway 36, I think it is, the Tauranga Highway. Yeah, the Poispa Road. And so I guess my only question in terms of deliberations, and that would be the transition from 80 to 50, and how does that work in terms of, you know, the safety and all that sort of thing. But I do support your tono, that they're real issues. And thank you for coming today.
Councillor Gould.
Chair, thank you, Samantha, for your verbal report this morning. Have you noticed more trucks and or farming equipment travelling on Hamirana Road, and has the car traffic increased because of problems on Tinai Road?
Definitely increased over the 10-year period that I've known Mauria and the 3 years that I've been living there. The trucks especially, and also big coaches going down there, and they really struggle to keep on the right side of the road going around those bends. It has become really dangerous, and there's also a lot of cyclists that use that stretch of road as well. The volume of traffic has really increased, and I wish now, when I saw the previous presenter, I'd taken some shots of how much traffic goes down there. So, you know, and the van that my son goes to Kura on is picking up more tamariki than ever down there. There's also kohanga vans stopping and picking up tamariki and other school buses because whangamarino Kura kids have to walk along to go and pick up. But also there's only now a footpath on one side of the road in Mauria, so they're having to cross over, and the amount of people that overtake on that road, stretch of road, because they're the straight pieces at Hamirana and at Mauria. So it's always been a problem, even now with it being 70 there. So if the rest of the stretch of road becomes a 70, they will still use that to put their foot down. So I believe by reducing it down below 50, we might just keep people at 70, because it's not a stretch of road that the police go and monitor. And that's the problem, that people just know that they can get away with doing what they want down there.
One point, please.
Certainly.
When you say coaches, when you say buses I take as school kids, and coaches I take as tourist buses with tourists on. Is it a particular time of the day that the buses are going, you know, like school times, or is it coaches the whole?
I often see coaches when I'm travelling on that road, so that's at various times of the day, but I can't actually see the road from my house, so but I can feel the trucks go past, so that's why I wish I'd taken some footage now, because it's difficult for me to quantify.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell, did I see your hand raised? No. Or yes or no? No. Oh, thank you. I do have a question, Samantha. The bridge that I go with, you know, with one of my little mokopunas, it's very dangerous. Is that 70 there? Because it doesn't feel like it when those cars booted along there.
In Hamirana?
Aye.
Yes.
It is 70.
I believe so, yeah. And then the 80 starts just a bit further on. Yes.
Right, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for coming in this morning and speaking to your submission. Oh, sorry. Nicholas Johansson? Nicholas, thank you. Nicholas, you're with NZTA. That's correct? That's correct? Thank you. Good morning and welcome. You've got 10 minutes this morning, so you can use them as you wish, or if you'd like to leave a few minutes for questions, you're most welcome.
To support, that's better. To support our submission and our position on the range of speed limit proposals. And to start out, I just really want to emphasise that we very much support the move to safe and appropriate speeds for the network. It is the most effective tool to reduce the road trauma. There's no two ways about that in terms of efficiency, effectiveness and efficacy of the interventions and the roading network. So we very much support that. We can look at world's best practice as well in jurisdictions where they have world-leading jurisdictions where they have only a third of the road trauma that we have here in New Zealand. Traffic calming measures are a big part of getting to that level of road trauma, so we very much support that. It's also very clear in the new GPS or the draft GPS of the government that some of you may have read that speed limit and implementation of the speed management guide is a big part of this government's intention to hit hard at the level of deaths and serious injuries on our roads. What we do want to do, though, is to encourage you to focus on the high benefit sections of the roads, and some of these ones in this proposal aren't actually they aren't sections of roads that will hit the high benefit areas in terms of accidents. So this has a bit of a legacy. This has been a long while in the making, and we didn't necessarily have all the mapping tools and all the data to ascertain that when this process was started. So this is just a point in going forward, really. So in terms of how we view this proposal, we have agreed with a lot of the changes. There are some, however, that we would like further work on, or to see changes to either 60 or 80. So this is predominantly about 4 sections, I think it is, Peter. Can you? Yeah, 4 sections. That we struggle with the proposal to go to 70. And the reason for that is that the new rule, the speed management rule that came into force late last year, has got a long-term plan to go to 50, 60, 80 and 100, and 110 in a couple of instances around the country. So the long-term plan is to phase out all 70s, and at some point we need to sort of put a stake in the ground and say no more new 70s, and start to phase out the old ones. So that's why we would support, in the instances of the 70s here, that you look at either 60 or 80, and there are guidelines for in the mapping tools as to which of those are the most suitable ones. And it is the Transport Agency's job to administer that rule, so it's not something that we just sort of felt was a good law to put into place. This is driven from Ministry of Transport, and it's our job to administer it, and that talks specifically about phasing out 70s and not introducing any new ones. So we really struggled to align the rule with those 4 sections in your proposal. There are some criteria for having a 70 in place, though, and that is that there is a long-term plan to go to either 60 or 80, so that could be an option to be looked at as well. So if there's a definitive plan to put traffic calming measures into place and lower it to 60, or engineer up so that it can be safely introduced at 80 at some point in the future. But from the Transport Agency's point of view, we don't see a reason right now why you couldn't go to either 60 or 80. Another point I wanted to make also is that you're not bound by sticking to 70 just because you have consulted on it, because as part of the feedback of the consultation, you can choose either 60 or 80, either which one is the most suitable for the environment. And that pretty much concludes my points.
Thank you.
So happy to take questions on that.
Yes, thank you. I'm sure there will be a question. Can I just ask you, you did say that you were going to, the 50, 60, 80, 100. Do you envisage that over a 5, 10, 15-year period, or if you move away from the 70? How long do you think that's going to actually be? Is that sort of quite long term, or?
We work to, we have a 3-year plan and a 10-year plan, and the 3-year plan is aligned with what's in the government policy statement now, which is to introduce safe and appropriate speeds on 10% of the network. That sounds terrible, doesn't it, that we aim for a target of 10%, but the fact of the matter is that 97% of the networks in New Zealand have got inappropriate speeds, and that's because of a very high default speed, which is inappropriate for many of our rural roads and highways. So we have a 3-year plan to attend to those 10% where we have the highest death and serious injuries on the network, and a long-term plan of 10 years to have the speed management guide implemented on the whole of the network. So,
thank you. Thank you for that. It's good. It's interesting to know. Thank you. Councillor Bentley, then Councillor Gall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your presentation, Nicholas. I'm just referring to your summary, or the summary by the agency, where it says you do not support the speed limit changes to Pongakawa Valley, Makirika, Vaughan's, Owhara, Turner, Tiwaranga, and a few others. So what you're saying is, without NZTA approval, no matter what this committee comes up with, if you don't agree with it, it's not going to happen.
No, you can put them in place, but I would hope before you do that we can continue to work on it. And some of those you mentioned, I think we have actually, Tanaka, Peter and Stavros, you are familiar with the detail here, but I understand there's only 4 now outstanding that I think are sticking points. Is that right?
Yeah, just to clarify, Councillor Bentley, some of those things you're referring to are an initial discussion or submission from NZTA. Right. So we have subsequently had discussions with Glenn Bunting, who is the NZTA Road Safety Manager, and he has agreed with our proposals in general, except for, as Nicholas alludes to, the proposal to put this, to include 70s in sections of Hamarana Road. You will note, though, in the original report that Council did adopt to go to the public with this, there was an alternative recommendation in that for a mix of 60s and 80s along Hamarana Road, which can be implemented with some engineering intervention to induce compliance. So I think we can, I guess we might be getting into the next stage of the process, but we will certainly look at that closely and discuss with NZTA any final recommendations that we make during the deliberations. So the 4 that we have an issue with now in terms of approving are Hamarana, Casca, Turner and Te Whaerenga. And that's related to that 70 issue that I talked about before, that long term we have a plan of introducing 60 and 80 only and phase out the 70 for the sake of not having 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s on the network. That is quite confusing, or can be confusing to the road user.
So as a nation, that's the direction we're moving in.
Thank you. Councillor Gould?
Chair, thank you, Glenn, for your report. I noticed the difference between local roads is what we normally control and what national roads is what you normally control. And I'm going to talk about Vaughan's Road, because the request is from 70 to 50. If we went to 60 for the whole of Vaughan's Road, would NZTA approve that, or would NZTA not approve the from 70 to 50, from what you've just said?
If you went to 50, I'd struggle to see that we would have an issue with that. Because 50 is one of the speed limits that are in the guide as one that will remain in there. 50, 60 and 80 will be in there.
Your long term was 70 was going to come out. You either went to 80 or 60.
Or sorry. So that's I was assuming that if you were aiming for 70, that either 60 or 80 would be the next best choices, not 50. But if you have a reason to go to from proposed 70 to a 50, I'm sure that we would consider that very seriously. And
Thank you.
Can I just go back to answer your question, Councillor Bentley? That was whether you couldn't put them in place if the Transport Agency don't approve them. The point is that you can actually put them in place, but they would not be enforceable by police. So it's not a legally enforceable speed limit.
Thank you. Well, yes, I doubt whether we'd want to introduce something that wasn't enforceable. I mean, what would be the point? So I'm going to take just a couple more, please, because the time is moving on, and as councillors know, it's 10 minutes that we allow a lot. Mrs. Trumper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicholas, going back to the original draft consultation document, the section of the Wātapu corridor, State Highway 5, was included, which NZTA actually asked for it to be removed. Can you advise me why?
Sorry, I can't from the top of my head. No, I would have to do some research on that and get back to you, I'm afraid.
Because you talk about high benefit roads. High benefit roads, in my limited experience, would be where you have reports of accidents and serious injuries, etc. That particular section of road has more misses than actual hits, but the number of accidents are minor, but a large number of minor accidents. And I really seriously want that back on the table somewhere.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt, then Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Nicholas. Just wondered, when you looked at those roads where you've suggested either 60 or 80, whether, and you spoke about engineering up, are there some of those sections, or has preliminary work been done on some roads that simply couldn't be engineered up to an 80, and so therefore the default would be 60, and it would certainly guide us in our decision making to not be arguing for an 80k in a piece of road that simply couldn't be engineered up to that standard. So if you could give some guidance on that, or at least that could come back in our report.
Yeah, so engineering up is obviously very costly, particularly when there's a lot of friction on either side. By friction, I mean lots of excesses and activity on either side of the road. It means that you need to have lots of space on either side of the traffic. It means that you can't access or safely access at all the current access points, so you might have to build side roads that or feeder lanes, feeder roads to limit the number of access to that road. So the minute you start to talk about engineering up, unless it is very close to an open road kind of environment already, it is very, very costly and time consuming and a big impact on either side of the road, really.
further, so it's unlikely that many of these roads would be suitable for that engineering up.
Yeah, well, just as a gut feel. I mean,
General comment, I'm
yeah,
not committing you to anything.
No
really
engineering science behind it, just sort of from a gut feel point of view, and of course, I can just in managing the highways and the program of work that we look at introducing the speed management. It's a very, very small minority where we feel a justification for engineering up just because of the cost involved.
Thank you for the fullness of your answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr Thomas, last question. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for your report and comments, and the move towards 60 and 80 km/h speed limits is you quite logically explained, and I'm sure the residents on State Highway 33 between O'Kerry Falls and Moria will be eagerly anticipating a change from 70 to 60k. So I hope to see that in the near future. You'd mentioned about the high benefit roads, and a lot of our local roads that we're looking at these speed limit changes aren't necessarily. It's not necessarily going to be of high benefit in terms of accidents, but would you acknowledge that there is also a whole lot of other issues there, like community cohesiveness? We've had presenters earlier on today talking about the ability to cross the road, families feeling safe, reaching community facilities and stuff. So would you agree that there is actually a wider range of benefits around speed reductions other than merely preventing accidents?
Absolutely, yeah, and that's something that we are very keen to pursue as well. We have quite a big part of the network as we call it self-explaining, which means that it's signposted at 100, but there's actually no way in the world that you can safely drive it at 100. So people drive at lower speeds anyway. So from just a sensibility point of view, why don't we change those speed limits? So that's about the default around the country, and that's something that we're sort of working on. But there are a number of reasons, and to focus on the communities on either side and make it safe, or even just to feel safe, so that we can, encourage modal change. People pick up biking, walking, rather than taking the car, and that's often about a feel rather than a statistics as well. So I totally agree with that notion. But in saying that, central government now through the GPS has pointed us towards you have to go and lower the rate of death and serious injury. So don't waste your limited resources in doing this work over the next short while where we don't gain the benefits. You have to focus on where we can reduce the death and serious injury. So I agree with you, but I think we need to do it in order of importance and focus our efforts on death and serious injuries at this point, merely because our record is appalling.
It is. It's abysmal. You're right.
Could I just ask a follow-up onto that? Yeah, I would just like to comment on that most of these speed changes that we're proposing here have been community-driven. It hasn't been council going out and saying, hey, let's drop the speed limit. It's normally been from those communities coming and asking for all those variety of reasons. Just a final question about the proposed 70k areas. You mentioned that you have this plan over years to phase it through. So if there was an area that we felt only able to go to 70k rather than 60 or 80 at the moment, but with a proposal to look at lowering it in the future, would that be more acceptable to NZTA?
Yeah, we have a few of those proposals around the country, and just to give you an example of how they can be pitched. So if you say we'll put in 70 now, and sometime in the future we'll revisit it and either engineer up to 80 or calm it down to 60. we'd probably struggle with that, but if there is a plan and a timeline and how you would go about that, there's a chance that it could be supported. But my point is that why would you spend the effort in doing that if you can go to 60, if that now is the right answer straight away?
Yeah, I think that might be, that might relate to community buy-in, where people have been okay about being at 70, but not okay at being at 60.
That's right.
We need to educate further.
Yeah, that's right. So that's there are conversations that need to be had, and where you can end up with those communities.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
And in terms of technical support or evidence, data, whatever, we're obviously available to help with any of those conversations.
Thank you, Mr. Johansson. Yes, you have given us a good steer to when we do come and do our deliberations, councillors do our deliberations in the near future. So thank you for coming along this morning and speaking to your submission. Thank you. Councillors, I'm going to take just a 5-minute break, just to rearrange our program a wee bit, and then we'll move straight back into the rest of the submitters. Thank you. They're all getting pretty good running. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. If you like to. Good morning, Mr. Shekel, and welcome this morning. You have 10 minutes, and if you'd like to use all of the 10 minutes, fine. Otherwise, there might be a couple of questions at the end from councillors, but I'll leave the time up to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's Jeffrey Shekel. I live in Hilton Road, just off Tarawera Road. And I'd like to see the council look at a quiet roads program. I'll just look at Tarawera Road for a moment. If we're looking at speed limits, one of them is to go from 100k to 80k across most of Tarawera, which is I would support in terms of safety, because the road engineering only allows 80k. But what we'll end up having is at the roundabout 60k, 400 metres of the residential on Tarawera Road at 50k, another 1 kilometre at 70k, and then possibly either 100k or 80k if the actual 80k goes through. But what I'm more interested in is the residential part that's 70k, and from community values is the noise. It's just been resealed and in grade 5 to 3, and effectively going from 70k to 50k would decrease it 2 decibels, and if it was in asphalt concrete it would actually make life a lot more bearable at 7 decibels less. And this is looking at community values here, and also consistency of speed limits, and also the engineering of the road. Most of my other submissions have effectively been in that safety or engineering of the road only allows for those sort of values, because those are mainly the roads that I've actually used. Hamarana, I've actually said 80k, but when looking around, a lot of the areas are now, well, sort of partially built up areas of 70, actually 70k, but I'd like to just reiterate it back again that council should be looking at actually quietening the roads down. We've done it with tyres, we've done it with cars. Now we actually need to actually do it with roads, because even though you don't see it or hear it sometimes, some people have the tonal differences and frequencies at 1 kilohertz or 1,000 hertz. It makes a lot of difference to some people, and the way it actually bounces around the caldera. So, just to reiterate, is that I'd like to see more done in terms of noise for the actual community, and usually that is by decreasing the road speeds in residential areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shekel, by and large, do people adhere to that mix of speed limits that you've just alluded us to, where you've got 50 k's and then 100 k's, and then do they by and large adhere to them?
They by and large to the 50k, but when they get up to the 70k, it's effectively 80, 90.
Thank you. Councillor Gould.
Chair, thank you for your submission today, Godfrey. Do you use Tarawera Road daily?
Correct.
Did you notice last week when the road was resealed that the speed of the cars slowed down, or was it about the same as before it was sealed?
No, they did slow down. But now it's after the 50k, which is 70k, they're going a lot more than that.
Because at the present time when it got resealed, the signage on the middle of the road has been altered, but it will be going back. Have you noticed that the sealing of that particular road was good or bad?
It's bad.
Can I ask a question? The reseal, and you mentioned grade 5. So prior to the reseal, was it quieter? Are you saying that through the resealing and possibly the grade, or whatever that, I suspect I know what that means, has that made a difference in terms of sound and the noise? And
Well, when sealing is used for a long time, the stones actually fall over to one particular way and the tar comes through and they get quieter over time, usually a couple of years to do that.
Okay.
But now it's...
early days, isn't it?
Yeah, it is rather noisy, and the fact that the sealing hasn't been done too well, it'll end up with, there'll be a lot of bumps and more noise as well.
Thank you. Well, there are no further questions, so thank you very much for coming along this morning.
No, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
I'm just trying to... Okay, thank you. Mr. Tony Lepanovic, thank you. Oh, thank you. Good morning and welcome this morning.
Good morning. Kia ora and welcome, councillors.
Morning.
To my place.
Exactly.
So, we're going to go on a little experiential journey. So if you haven't read my submission, I suggest you just close your books and watch the screen and listen to me. How's that?
That'll do for starters.
You want to do something different?
That'll do for starters, yes.
Good. Okay. Let's roll.
Right.
This is the main highway and State Highway 30. Now turning into Manawahai Road. So let's stop right there. So for years we have been requesting a piece of getting off. So the forestry is harvesting the Rotorua forest, and the entrance and exits have been upgraded phenomenally. And yet our road, we don't have anything. Let's go, let's roll. And as you turn into here, it becomes an open road. Oh, nearly ran into that car. 100 k's through here. And I'd like you to stop right here. On the right-hand side is the Rotorua School. Can you believe that? 100 k's past a school? Let's get real here. The locals have already cut off and sawn off and thrown it away, the open road sign at the beginning of the road. And I noticed that council hasn't bothered replacing it. Let's continue. This is all 100 k's. Look at the state of the road. Pukekos. Wildlife. And then we come down through some S-bends. So let's hold it right there. Okay. How many of you had a bath lately in the Waitangi Soda Springs? I was there at 7 o'clock this morning. Yeah, every morning I go if I can. I don't have to work in that whole of Auckland. Anyway, so we have a blind entrance here. How many times have I requested to council to put a sign up showing that there's an entrance? I hate to tell you. Cars come out of here, need to get written off. 100 k's passing here both ways. Let's journey on. 7 to 9, the hot pools are open. 364 days a year. Then we make a left-hand turn into Pongakawa Valley Road. Still 100 k's. You've suggested 80. Well, I could live with 80, although I like the idea of the 60. and our Pukeko friends and our other wildlife, I have to stop regularly and clean them up and throw them into the bush. Didn't realise my vehicle was so noisy. This is a drag strip for people who go through this road from Rotorua, East Rotorua-Tait, probably Rotorua 2, through to Papamoa, onto the new expressway where they can do 110. So they're already getting ready to do the 110 through here. It narrows, the bush overhangs, needs a good trim, as you can see. Now as we come through this S-bend and we approach the brow of the hill, some time ago we had 50k signs there, but the council in its wisdom removed those signs and gave us these huge big 50k signs over the brow of the hill and right by the loading ramp for launching your boats. So here we come round the corner, stop, we've missed it. There's our, okay, just a little bit back. Here's our beautiful new big 50k zone signs. Yep, there they are. Look, 50 on the road, which is brilliant. Well, I know the person's in the room, so I'm not going to be derogatory, but you know, really, in hindsight, how ridiculous is this? Can you imagine trying to back a boat in there? It's gone. 50k's is great. Now we're into the residential areas. And the increase, as you know, through the sewerage process, the increase in permanence has moved from about 3 to 13 in this particular bay. So this is great, 50k's. One of the residents as you come up here will see has actually written 50k's on the road. And you put in a couple of arrows recently, and I'm saying to myself, what did you put arrows in for? I mean, you can only go up and down. I mean, sorry, but this is ridiculous and a waste of money. Sharp corner here, 50k's, that's great. We continue up the hill. Logging trucks use this road. We've had the barriers replaced, which is really good, but they've smashed the barriers. I mean, you imagine coming up this road and meeting a logging truck. At 50k, it's not so bad. So that's all been replaced. Thank you, Council.
We're not going all the way to Papamoa, are we?
No, but we're doing this. I know how long it takes, 6 minutes. So just bear with me. The next part is critical. Just like our road deaths are critical. So we come to the top of the hill. And I'd like you to stop around about there. What does that sign say? What does that sign say, guys? Thank you. Let's go down the hill. Now you try and do 100k's down this hill. We were doing 30 to 35. Now how many times residents, the local community association has requested that it be 50k's from Kennedy Bay to the other side of Otautu Bay? Seriously, I'd hate to think. Submissions, letters, requests, community board, asking. What do? You don't listen. You ignore us. So here we go. We can't do any more than 30 to 35 down here. And my warrant of fitness and reg are up to date. now we're entering into the beginning of Raukawa-Tait Bay. You come round the corner, keep going, and stop. 50k past the first house. I mean, what's going on here? Another area is like going into Rotorua now. You say that there's a 70k zone coming up. Pretty cheap signage. Let's go. So we have 50k's for approximately 150 metres. And we go past the entrance into Tomlinson Road, where there are now 24 permanent residents, as opposed to years ago. Now we get into 100k's. Now we do 100k's all the way up here, past other residents, until we get to the gravel road. So this is a 35 maximum winding part up the hill. I will say for the logging trucks, they do that. So we can stop there. It goes up to the gravel road. So you might have read my submission. I forgot about these things. I don't really have a lot else to say. You know, it's pretty obvious. It's common sense. So I'd be happy to run with the 80k's along Ponkakawa Road, but 50k's from State Highway 30 to the intersection of Manawahei and Ponkakawa. I think that's very fair. Past the Soda Springs and the school. Okay, 60 and 80, I heard that was a fabulous report from LTA. 60 and 80, I could live with 80, but 50k's from Kennedy Bay at the brow of the hill, not outside the launching ramp, boat ramp, to the seal at the other side of Raukawa-Tait Bay. Any questions?
Thank you. Councillor Gould.
Yeah, with the request by the, and what we've seen with the video today, is it possible to do those speed changes with this present bylaw proposal? Reduction?
We've actually heard today that it is possible, but that would be a discussion that we would have, certainly based on the submissions that we've heard, and also taking into consideration what NZTA said in terms of their long-term strategy, their long-term, where did I write it? Their long-term strategy. So it would be possible, but that's something that we'll take up in our deliberations. Ms Mohi?
Through you, Madam Chair. Can you just clarify again those stretches that you're proposing, the 50k zone?
So the Community Association, the residents and myself, so I didn't say that at the beginning, I'm an executive member of the Rotorua Ehu Community Association. The proposal is that from State Highway 30 to the intersection of Manawahei and Ponkakawa Valley Road, that it be 50k's. Past the camp, past the school, and past the Waitangi Soda Springs. From that intersection to the crest of the hill, before Kennedy Bay, after the submissions I've heard this morning, 80k's. I withdraw my 70 proposal, 80k's would be fair. From the crest of that hill to the gravel road past Raukawa-Tait Bay, 50k's, which is in my submission.
Kia ora, thank you.
Kia ora, thank you.
Councillor Maxwell?
Kia ora, thank you very much for the journey. I haven't been past Soda Springs and that, so it opened my eyes a little bit there. The question I've got is, how long is that gravel road from where you said it starts to Papua? How long is that?
Oh, the gravel road is at the top of the hill past Otautu Bay. And that gravel road runs in the council's area to where Rotorua Road starts at the T intersection, then it becomes Western Bays. The gravel road lasts for approximately, I can't remember the kilometres, you might know, Peter, I can't remember. It's about 10-minute drive. Then it comes into Western Bay. Then it's tar seal all the way to the coast. There's no gravel road in the residential area. And it's well maintained. I give credit to council. The road is well maintained and looked after as the gravel road.
Thank you, Tony. I wasn't aware that the Rotorua Corporation had started clear felling, because I'm familiar with that, and also the road.
That's been going on for
But
probably a year.
Is it clear felling?
You're talking about logging?
Yes.
Yes. And they've got probably 5 or 6 years to go.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that they were clear felling yet. I thought they might have been doing selective.
No, it's clear felling in patches, and it's clear felling. The forest in Pongakawa Valley Road, fortunately, I would say 90%, according to the timber companies, is going to Port of Tauranga.
Yes.
And only about 10% comes back through Pongakawa Valley Road to the mill or to other places. So we don't get a lot of logging trucks now. We did it originally when, of course, a lot of the rubbish had to come out this way. But no, it's great now. We might get 2-3 logging trucks a day.
Thank you.
And they're seriously, the logging truck drivers are excellent. You know, they come down the hills, they don't use engine brakes, they come down at probably 2 or 3 kilometres an hour. They're wonderful.
Well, thank you very much for coming along this morning, and also for taking the time to do video the road and explaining and showing us exactly what you meant and what you wanted to have covered, what you covered in your submission. So thank you very much.
Thank you, councillors.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair.
Well, thank you. Excuse me, councillor. Thank you. Well, thank you, I don't think, well, no, we're not. Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, councillors. The process now is that have we set a date for the deliberations yet? That's just the normal one, 10th of May. Thank you. Thank you very much, councillors. So I'll declare our meeting for the hearings closed now, because we've finished with the submitters that have come along. Thank you very much. Kia ora. The 10th of May. On our SPNF meeting, so it'll be after the meeting.
And the recommendations will be...
Yes, and the recommendations come to council on the 31st. So that's good. It's not going to take